Terrinoth is a turn-based strategy RPG game developed by Artifact Studio, which worked on titles such as The Dungeon of Nahilbuk, Terraforming Mars, and Garfield Racing? Anyway, Terrinoth Heroes of the Scent is actually based on the tabletop game Descent: Journeys into the Dark, originally published by Fantasy Flight Games in 2005. Currently, the tabletop game is in its second edition, and this seems to be the first foray of the setting into a computer game of its own. And I am going completely blind here. I haven't played anything from the studio and I know nothing about the tabletop and its scenario. How did it fare? On the visuals, my honest first impression is that the game was low budget. But the developers actually used what they had as best as they could. The intro and cinematics are narrations while the camera pans over stained glass depicting the adventures at hand, which I do find a creative workaround since it does help in immersing the player into an adventure that happened a long time ago and isn't overly expensive to the budget. But while this does look like low budget, it doesn't look cheap, and this is an important difference to make. The character models are quite detailed and well animated, but this comes with the caveat that they won't change their armor and weapons when you equip them with different gear. Walking has weight, clothes sway as you walk, and they wobble their mouths when they speak. Speaking of, character designs are detailed, interesting, but they can be a bit generic. You have the Dragon Knight, the Barbarian God, the Dwarf Wizard, but let's be fair, it's a bit hard to have your own unique fantasy style nowadays. And I don't know if it was on purpose to be closer to the board game, so I can't and won't judge on this aspect. Overall, the tone of the maps is dark, leaning more to brown and dark blue, but still quite visible, thank the gods. You have the usual fare of dungeons, going through underground lairs, some castles, manors, temples, and such. Designs overall aren't too shabby, but nothing special either. I wouldn't blame anyone for feeling that the setting is a bit generic, especially since some of the tricks of the trade are more obvious, such as everyone in the orc village already evacuated when the hero arrives. But there are finer details to be seen. During gameplay, the camera is locked above the character you're using, no scrolling around, and cutscenes during missions are the usual zooming in of the models. I wish I could increase the size of the character's avatar pictures during dialogues though. Now, visually, the biggest problem was the user interface. It's nothing game-breaking, but it shows some inexperience. For example, before tackling the missions, there is the character selection screen. The way of selecting different characters is a bit unintuitive. You have to click their names below their models, not the models themselves. To access the Forge and Biography, you have to click the upper left icon when everything could be just laid out above. While there is a help section, it lacks some fundamentals like explaining what every status does or a glossary to help explain the scenario. And being just a bit of a pedantic hole, some of the descriptions could have been better written, like shoves enemies 2 tiles away. But at least the lack of a glossary is compensated with an explanation tab. It does fills the gaps well, and something that I enjoyed was that the map does tell you which chests and points of interest you've already interacted with, and those that you have yet to touch. On the gameplay aspect, pretty much akin to Baldur's Gate 3, Terrinoth Heroes of the Scent is a tactical turn-based RPG with focus on skills and a dash of terrain manipulation. You have your heroes, you assign skills to them, and pieces of gear. The differences start when you see that each hero can only have 2 slots each for skills and gear, being expanded to 3 as they level up. And the gameplay itself is more streamlined. 3 action points, being used for either actions or movements. This time, enemies don't give loot besides money and XP, so there is no need to go on body after body after body. You find loot through hidden chests in the map and XP and sometimes skills in stone tablets also hidden inside maps. A nice touch is that, by the end of the mission, you are awarded a piece of gear to choose, and whichever you don't choose isn't lost forever nor kept for the player to redo the stage. It's immediately sent to the shop to be bought at your own convenience. Pieces of gear have levels that are upgraded after the forge is unlocked, using special shards. Instead of a big open world map, the game itself is set on stages, 4 chapters, each one having a different amount of stages. Something that I really like is that the game tells you how many hidden pieces of loot are in each stage and the overall strengths and weaknesses of the foes you find. For example, a stage that shows you find fire weakness and lightning resistance probably means you fight undead. And the structure of the stages themselves is straightforward, but deeply rewards careful exploration. There are nearly always secondary paths to take in order to start a fight with a big advantage or, of course, find the hidden goodies. There is the usual fare of exploration and combat, but also there is a surprising amount of puzzles, mostly the ones to roll stones or blocks to their specific slots. Nothing seriously challenging, but it's a nice welcome change of pace, and the ones further ahead can make you actually stop to think. Other spots allow more textbook interactions that can result on extra items, XP or money depending on which character you brought to the fray, which adds replayability. One nice thing in these sections is that they do tell you which character would have which reaction, so you're not left guessing. On the technical aspects, well, this game is a bit rough. Slow loads both for the game itself and the stages, and some annoying bugs overall, ranging from floating enemy bodies to combats that don't start. And a really weird bug after Act 2 where you end with infinite money. Thankfully, I haven't found anything game-breaking, and while I haven't tested it, there are reports that the multiplayer is messy. Now, onto the combat, I have to say that Terrinoth offers good ideas and a really uncalibrated execution. It's not messy, it's not bad, you probably won't feel it till the 3rd act, unless you play on a veteran like I did, but it's really uncalibrated. It's easy to grasp without the minutiae of the more elaborated games. It does resemble a lot a melee focused version of the XCOM games and adds nifty points, like the ability of swapping character order around. There are also special attacks that charge the more you use your skills, and they can be a tide breaker. To make things even swifter and simpler, whenever you finish a fight, all your team is healed, statuses are cleared and charges recovered, unless your character was downed, to which they receive a penalty for the rest of the dungeon. Several skills can be edited and tweaked to give extra effects, and they synergize well. For example, a character can set an enemy on fire, which another character can make explode. Since movements and actions draw from the same pool, ranged attacks have an immense advantage over enemies who need to get closer to fight. And that's why several games like XCOM separate between attacking and moving. Staying on higher ground is paramount to the point of being game breaker, giving range and hit boosts, and in some cases improving your skills, and if you push an enemy that can't fly off a ledge, they are insta-killed. And the game doesn't know how to deal with this. First, because the AI isn't the sharpest bulb in the shed. Be it an ally or enemy, characters often make suicidal choices in combat, like walking straight into an area of effect attack even if it's their own. If you are on a higher ground and block the stairs, the AI won't know what to do, even if there are other stairs just nearby. And sometimes they will move erratically, like throwing themselves into a pit and just staying there. Sometimes though it will use its advantages, but more often than not, enemies will bundle up in easy ways to be killed. And thus the second part. This game pushes for difficulty through reinforcement waves. A lot of reinforcement waves. As in, you see the combat area, you check the number of enemies using the special eye, you start the fight, kill half of your enemies, and then BAM! 5 more appear from the corner of the map, or behind you. Sometimes what will trigger a wave is a certain number of rounds. Sometimes if you kill the enemies fast enough, it won't trigger a wave. Sometimes it will be killing a specific foe or doing some damage to the boss. I once triggered 2 reinforcement waves at the same time by insta-killing the boss, which wasn't fun. Sometimes the game will warn you when reinforcements will arrive, sometimes it won't. The longer you get into the campaign, more of these waves show up. These constant reinforcements often turn the fights into a slog, and, to make things worse, the vast majority of your character's side skills have limited uses. For example, the druid can only use her healing wave 4 times per fight, so you may plan ahead, use the skills with care, and when you're just about to win by the skin of your teeth, there we go, 5 more foes to fight. So it wasn't just once where I yelled, "Oh, f off." Speaking of, characters and skills are also quite unbalanced. At first, you can only assign 2 skills and 2 pieces of gear per character. From these pieces, you can only wear 1 armor, 1 weapon, 1 accessory and 1 throwable. You have 8 characters. 3 of them are melee fighters. Out of these 3, Karaz the Dragon Knight and Myria the Barbarian have very similar sets of skills to the point they could have been blended into the same character. I ended using Karaz more often because he could do everything Myria could, but far better. Yet, you have only one character with default and specialized decay attacks, an element which is super effective against anything that isn't an undead. One character with default and specialized ice attacks, and Arlo, the swashbuckler artificer who has lots of bombs, which are very limited in use and efficiency. Oh, and he has a healing bomb, which doesn't work on himself. He is a jack of all trades who would be perfect for a game where you could choose 6 characters instead of 4. Speaking of, there are lots of skills that are extremely situational if not downright questionable. For example, the archer, who is penalized if there is an enemy next to him, has a skill to pull enemies to him. Some skills work on different high levels, others don't. The druid's secondary main skill, which is to cleanse her colleagues from any bad status, and is also useless when most of her healing skills can be edited to do the same. All her heals are weak regenerations, but I couldn't not use her because, again, she is the only one who has a default decay attack. And bizarrely, she ended downright broken with just some additions for specific gears. Speaking of, the gear ended up wildly inconsistent and with lots of downright useless pieces. For example, some boots counts as armor, while bracers counts as accessories. And the special armor for the cleric just gives her more fire resistance? While there is a chest piece that boosts her healing enormously? My impression is that either the devs could have allowed the characters more gear and skills with more uses, or keep them as they are but allow 6 characters instead of 4. But still, it's doable. It's not bad. You can filter through the trash and make specific combinations and crowd control tactics. Even with all those hurdles, I was able to have fun in my game. At least until the 3rd chapter, where you introduce it to Demon Blight. Demon Blight is a cumulative status that, once it reaches 15 stacks, your character gets more vulnerable to demon attacks, and once it reaches 30 stacks, your character instantly dies. By itself, it's not bad. In fact, it could be a very interesting counter to tanks, except that it can't be removed by normal magical purges such as Finiel's Nature Fortitude. It only removes 1 stack at a time, and the very first fight where this mechanic is introduced, I had to fight 10 demon spiders where each one can give 1 or 2 stacks per attack, and when they die, they explode, giving another stack to everyone in its radius, which can lead to a chain reaction of spiders killing spiders, making insanely easy to kill 1 or 2 of your characters in just a few turns. And that's not counting the aforementioned reinforcement waves. Their attacks can spawn a 3x3 corrupted tiles, which, you guessed it, gives the blight status to whoever is over or walks over them. So, what so far was a challenging but doable nuisance became a headache. And it gets worse, because soon after you start fighting summoners who not only spawn blight tiles, but summon spiders as much as the AI wants. No cooldown, no limits, I'm not even counting the demons that give even more stacks if they die. This is the moment where the majority of the casual players will say "F this" and leave. So I can't in good conscience recommend this game fully until this is patched up. Again, this gameplay is simple, solid, and most of its problems can be easily fixed with some calibrations. The devs have something fun going, and I just hope they fix it. Not every single fight, especially bosses, need 15 waves of reinforcements. As for the writing, the first impression I got was a mix between Final Fantasy, Faerun, and Dragonlance, since the realm is populated by orcs, elves, dwarfs, dragonmen, and constantly fight waves of darkness using the powers of crystals, but thankfully it doesn't get that generic. The overall plot is interestingly expository, as in, it's meant to present Terrinoth as a scenario to the player, which by itself will have pros and cons. The game has 4 chapters, each chapter focused on part of the scenario that will be fleshed out through conversations, expository pieces, hints, and more. Again, a glossary would be of immense help to delve further into the lore. On the other hand, fleshing out the scenario comes with the price of not fleshing out, well, anything else. This is a piecemeal narrative. Every chapter has its own contained arc with its own contained villain. Heroes arrive, fight the villain either escapes or is killed, but his main minion escapes to be faced later. So don't expect much plot progress till the last chapter, nor any villain being especially striking or memorable. Interestingly, the plot chose to have a druid and dwarf cult as some of the antagonists, which is unusual but a very welcome change of pace. Each stage of each chapter will be focused on one specific character, which ends kinda weird if you bring someone related to the stage but not on focus. For example, the druid doesn't react to her people having been slaughtered because the focus of the stage is the dwarf mage. Now, what about the characters themselves? This will be quite weird. These characters are rather simple. There won't be any talks about human condition or huge personal arcs. At best, Arlo the Swashbuckler is the only one to get some character development. But after years being a critic and seeing all sorts of protagonist groups containing some or being entirely made of cynical assholes, quirky morons, or worse, the group presented in Terrinoth is a godly balm to my soul. There isn't a single asshole or quirky moron here. They are a simple group of adventurers that unironically stick to their characters' archetypes without a drop of bitterness. They are cautious but welcoming. Their reasons for bundling up are quite logical, simple, and straightforward, and they often prefer to focus on the bigger problem and the greater good rather than get into petty squabbles. For example, the first chapter starts with the dwarf mage trying to recover an artifact that was stolen from her, but as soon as they see that the land is about to be overrun with the undead, the dwarf and her friends drop their current quest and join a cleric that is seeking to purge this blight before it's too late. And they simply say, hey, we scratch your back, you scratch ours, okay? Simple. Their banter is actually friendlier and does remind me a lot of the shenanigans that my friends and I did when playing tabletop D&D. You see that they are somewhat goofy but not stupid or jerks. At worst, the tiger guy is kind of a cocky jackass, and the swashbuckler is pompous and arrogant, but neither of them are assholes, and the narrative just lets flow with the usual tropes of heroes trying to do their best to help, without being really afraid of going a tad deeper into purple prose or be honest. You see Karaz going have at you without being a Castlevania reference, and huzzah without being treated as a cringy moment. So, if you've been looking for a drama-free, pleasant romp with some nice characters, without the need to get into a thicker plot, you just found your game. And after a long review, the part of the soundtrack will be rather short. The music is serviceable, nothing bombastic and outstanding, but nothing shabby either. And as expected for a smaller game, voice acting ranges from good to meh. You have actors who are trying their best, and others that, well, were just there. At most, there is the peculiarity of being able to choose if you have a guy narrating your game or a gal. While being given this choice is nice, I just don't know why this would be a priority for a small studio. In the end, I can't guess the intent of the developers. If they wanted to create a game that emulates a cozy D&D session with your friends, they nailed it. If they wanted to make something of a jump starter to something of their own, like another grand franchise or universe, they'd need to have done something more distinct and shift the tone. The story is simple, a bit scattered due to its expository nature and broken in smaller pieces with the chapters and stages, but having a group of characters without a single was something I craved for years, but I didn't realize till now. It's simple, it knows it's simple, and enjoys it. But sadly, the gameplay is still heavily uncalibrated with bugs and problems which can lead to frustration. it can still be fixed, so don't be ready to just dismiss this game yet. As it is currently, I'd suggest playing it only if you're looking for something chill, cranking the difficulty down, and waiting till developers patch down the annoying problems. Well, that's all for today. Thank you very much and see you all next time. Remember to like and subscribe.